just like you who's listening to this. I wake up and I go to work. I don't have 6 hours to spend in the gym. I'm lucky if I have 1 hour to spend in the gym, or carve out 20 minutes for a quick run, because the madness of the day is really what happens when you have a regular job. Fitness isn't my job, it's just what I love to do.
Let's link up with Krista on the Fix. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
What's up, Fix listeners? Welcome to our latest episode of the Fix podcast. I'm your host, Krista Huber, and I have got a jam-packed conversation for you guys today. I'm not going to make this intro super long because I want to get right into it. This episode is filled with real-life advice from someone whose perspective is amazing, and that is my friend, Aman Shah. Aman actually approached me about recording this podcast episode, and it took us several months to finally get it on the books. And I'm so glad that it actually happened, because this is one of those episodes where you can wrap your head around the fact that you can do whatever you're willing to put your mind to. And we talk about this right out of the gate in Aman introducing himself and talking a little bit about his story. He's just like you, the listener who, hey, you care about your health and wellness, but maybe there's some environmental factor, there's something in your life that's stopping you from really encouraging you to get to where you want to go. And he's going to help you push past that by talking about his own experience, talking about the tools, the mindset, all of the different things. The biggest one, spoiler alert, is self-awareness that is going to help you get to where you want to go. That tied with the idea that we are in this shit for life, and that a true lifestyle change may be small. It might look incremental. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. This is just one of those conversations where, as I'm listening as a nutrition coach, thinking about what I encourage my clients to think about on a daily basis, all I could keep doing is being like, totally agree. And this was just really fun. It was so great to be able to connect with a friend that I haven't spent a lot of time with over the last few years, and to be able to use the podcast to reform that relationship, which is really, really cool and something very special about these episodes. And I just know you guys are going to love this one. So as always, if you liked it, let us know. Comment on our social media posts about it. Shoot me a DM. Let me know if there's a particular part of the episode that you enjoyed, that you want to hear more about, and we'll put it on the roster for an upcoming episode. And with that, let's kick it over to Aman. So, not to put words in your mouth, but I feel like you said this to me the last time we spoke on the phone in preparing for this podcast episode. You saying, I'm an average guy who found his way into fitness. And I really want to use that to frame up this conversation, because that is one of the most relatable things you could possibly say when it comes to wellness and nutrition, when it comes to fitness and nutrition. And it's very easy for someone to listen to a professional or someone who has a much deeper passion about it for whatever reason that could be, and be like, oh, well, like, of course that person likes this. Of course that person wants to talk about this. Of course it's easier for them. But I think you really bring it back down to earth in that regard. So all of that said, because that wasn't a question, my first question is to open it up to the listener. I know your story, but we want the Fix listeners to hear your story. Who is Aman Shah? But more specifically, why should we care about what you have to say?
So like you said, as I'm just a regular person, I wake up, I go to work every day, and I, work an office job, or I'm sitting all day, and I found my way into fitness. And I found my way into fitness because I really wanted to better myself. And as I told you before, like, who I am is the average guy. I'm the average guy who wakes up, goes to work, but every single day I find a way to better myself through fitness. And the way I got into that was, I don't think I worked out till I was like 18 years old, which is insane, right? Like, going to gym class for me when I was in high school was like a nightmare. Like, I couldn't even run more than a 12-minute mile. Like, going to like play volleyball was literally terrifying because I knew I wasn't good at it. But to me, just like mentally one day, I was like, all right, enough is enough. Like, you want to get better, it's up to you. So I found a Groupon, just a Groupon that said, hey, try CrossFit for $100. I didn't know what a barbell was, a squat was, a clean was. I didn't even know what CrossFit was. Bought it and by myself walked into the gym. And I've been doing this for over 10 years. And I say I'm just getting started because fitness is a journey, right? So I walked in, grateful that I walked into the gym, had no idea what I was doing, met some great coaches along the way. And the funny thing is, like, my brothers got into fitness. I used to do CrossFit with my brother and my cousin, brought kind of everyone into it. And this has been a 10-year journey for me that I like to say I'm just getting started, because it's all about consistency. And it's not about like, how are you going to, achieve a goal and then you get there. It's not, fitness is like that. It's like a life, I say. It's how do you do this every single day and be consistent about it? And the thing I love about fitness is you have the opportunity to get better every day. So my goals from 5 years ago are very different than my goals now. But just like you do at work, or just like you do in your personal life, your life of health and wellness, you should constantly be making goals for you, not for anyone else, but for you to get better. But back to that is like me talking about all that fitness stuff is, I'm just like you who's listening to this. I wake up and I go to work. I don't have 6 hours to spend in the gym. I'm lucky if I have 1 hour to spend in the gym, or carve out 20 minutes for a quick run, because the madness of the day is really what happens when you have a regular job. Fitness isn't my job. It's just what I love to do.
There's so much to unpack there. But before we do, I have one other signature FYX question. And I didn't ask you about this before, but I know you've listened to the show at least one point, so you probably know it's coming. Do you drink coffee? And if you do, what do you like to sip on in the morning? There it is.
Do you drink coffee? I only drink black coffee. In the summertime, I drink black iced coffee, which is what's in here. And in the winter, I drink black regular, like black regular coffee, nothing fancy. I gotta train yourself for this, but there's no sugar in any of my coffee. There's like nothing like that. And it was very much a fitness type of decision and that kind of decision. But when I first got into drinking coffee, it was like sugar, milk, all of that. And like my coffee was probably like 200 calories, right? But then you just train your mind and your body, where I just have a cup of black coffee in the day.
Okay, so let's actually use that, because I mean, it's a really great real life example to get started, right? Of one, potentially what seems like a quote unquote small change that you can make in your routine, but has a really big impact. For you, use like sticking with just the coffee example, because there are so many ways I'm sure you can illustrate this in your life as you've reflected on the decisions you've made in the past 10 years since that first day you walked into a CrossFit gym. But what made you realize like, hey, I'm probably not being as mindful when it comes to my coffee, and maybe I could afford to switch out some calories here because I like to eat something else, or whatever it is? Like, what was your approach to that?
Well, my brother was the approach to that, because he brought it to my attention. So first is self-awareness. So so for me, it was like self-awareness, because when you do something every day, you don't realize what you're actually putting into your body or what you're doing. And my brother would only drink black coffee. So then you ask, why? It doesn't taste that good. And then you learn the self-awareness. And then the funny thing was, when I started to make that change, I started to then like coffee, not the sugar, not the milk, not that. Because at first you're like, oh, like what is this? Like, oh. But then you actually start to like coffee. But for me, like every decision that you're going to make in life, whether it's as simple, because it is a simple lifestyle change of just drinking black coffee, all starts with self-awareness. But the way you get that self-awareness could be from listening to a podcast. It could be from, your brother, your sibling telling you that. But you can't be a know-it-all, right? You can't be like, oh yeah, you just think that, right? But you have to have an open mind. So when my brother said that, I was like, I think you're onto something. And then you have curiosity, which is one of my like personal things, is that you always want to be curious. So you look it up. Be like, oh, my coffee is probably over 100 calories, plus that sugar is really, really bad for me because I put a bunch of sugar in it. If I just drink black coffee, it's like 5 calories. And why am I drinking coffee? Because it's the start to my day, right? It wakes me up and I enjoy it. So then you just start making that change. And like anything in life, just like fitness, it's hard. It's not going to be easy, but it's all about consistency and being like, okay, yesterday it was hard. Today it's a little better. And then tomorrow's better, and understanding what are your goals. But it's very internal. It's very mental. And that's what makes it tough, because you're not doing it for anyone but yourself. Everything you do should be for you at the end of the day.
I love that. And so self-awareness, let's start with that as something. What is your take on this? Do you think that self-awareness is something that you personally, because obviously we can only speak best to our own perspectives and experiences, is that something you think you have innately in you? Or is that something you think you've maybe recognized from relationships, other people, work interactions, whatever it is, that you needed to work on and have since developed? Because as you said, this is kind of the building block to all of this. And I would totally agree with that statement.
No, of course. It's definitely the latter of like, so when I was younger, and when I say younger, like in like elementary school, like my two best friends would tell me something, and my innate answer was, yeah, I know, even though I had no idea what they're talking about. It would be like, yeah, I got you. But the funny thing was, they would call me out on it all the time. And I love that they did. And I make the joke today. I'm like, thanks for calling me out when I was 10. Because now my innate response is, I have no idea what you're talking about. My innate response is like, I aim to be the dumbest person in the room because I can just learn and get better and do that. But when I was younger, I just thought I knew everything. And the funny thing is, I don't know much. I don't think there's so much out in the world. How do you know that? So between that to my interactions of my brothers always say, before you ask a question, try to figure it out for 5 minutes, or spend 5 minutes trying to figure it out. So you actually then build that capability of like, oh, I'll go to Google, or like I'll go to YouTube, or I'll try to learn. So that's that curiosity. And then it's a lot of, through that and the years of my life, it becomes a lot of reflection time, right? Like before coming on this podcast, I got 30 minutes of me time because my brothers were still in the gym. And that's my like 30 minutes of just my self-reflection time. And I love doing that because my days are like yours, Chris. It's go, 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 go. So I love being able to do that. But now I make a very conscious decision of, what do I listen to? What podcasts do I listen to? What do I read? Who do I talk to? And I've learned, because I think everything in life is a learning journey, that self-awareness is one of the most important things. And being self-aware to me is just having an open mind and auditing what you do and say. So if you said something to me and you said something like mean or rude or something, it shouldn't hurt you because it's coming from someone you don't know. But think about it. And and it might have not even been rude or mean. You just thought it was, right? You just thought it was rude or mean. And then think about it. Just really take the time to be like, wow, Krista told me I shouldn't have so much sugar with my coffee. And to me, that was like, oh, but I want to. But then I unpacked that a little bit. And I was like, oh, wow, she's onto something. That's self-awareness and having an open mind. But then you have to ask yourself the second question. It's like, what behavior change am I going to make in my life? And be honest with myself to then do it. That's a very personal thing. And that, I believe, is the hardest thing in life to do. Because you're not in front of someone, you're not out, you're not out on stage, you're not doing it for anyone but you. And that's the hardest thing to do, personally.
It truly is. And I think, I was listening to a podcast right before this, and to your point of having your me time or whatever it is, I was texting with one of my friends, and I had sent him the podcast too. And I said the reason why I listened to this podcast in particular is because I really admire the host. And he's somebody that I find that if I listen to him more, not to try to, copy what he's doing, but it's that energy that I want to embody going into my own show, or like studying the way he's asking questions of people. And usually it gives me inspiration for the next conversation I'm going to have. And one of the pieces of the conversation this host was having with his guest had to do with what you just said about the fact that all of this is hard. And that this was from like a sales and marketing kind of perspective. And it was asking the person to kind of think about, as the listener, like, okay, if you sell something, how does your product make something easier or make something faster? And then he actually gave the example and said, fitness is usually neither of those things. And that's what makes it very tough to sell. So to bring that back to you and to tie that into your decision to walk into that CrossFit gym, what changed inside of you? Like, what was it that you were just like, was it the external factor of a sibling? Was it how you felt day to day? Like, what was kind of that moment for you to finally decide, okay, today's the day I am actually going to commit to this and just go for it? I mean, most people are pretty scared walking into the gym the first time.
Oh yeah, no, there was a lot of fear, and I was so bad that I'm like, I think I can get better at this if you try, right? You put in the effort and you try. But for me, it was really internal. Like I want to get better, right? My brothers were always in sports across their lives. My cousin played football. And if you threw a football at me, even probably today, it might hit my face. Because I joke and say, I'm not athletic. I'm fit. I'm not athletic. And for me, it was just like, you want to kind of hang, right? You want to hang with the boys. You want to be able to do that. And I've probably attempted going to the gym so many times before that. Like I've attempted walking into like whether it was like LA Fitness or Planet Fitness. And I share that because what worked for me may not work for someone else, but I did try other things before that, right? Like I would go to the gym and I wouldn't get a good workout in, or I'd like go on the treadmill, but I didn't really know what to do, to be honest. When I walked into this gym, it was super intimidating. I'm not gonna lie. Like you don't even know what's happening. Like why are they lifting barbells? What are they jumping on boxes? Like what are they doing? But I'm gonna say I got lucky, and I got lucky because I met a great group of trainers. I started my CrossFit career at a gym called CrossFit Clan, and I met a great group of coaches there that helped me through the process. And every time I was bad, I told myself I'm going to come back and get better. I told myself like one day I'm going to be able to work out with these guys, and today I do. Today I work out with the people that trained me that they would not. I wouldn't even be able to put up the weight near they do. I wouldn't be able to move as fast as they do. But the point of that is 10 years, Krista, right? Like it was consistency.
I'm so glad you said the number of years again, because I was going to ask you to emphasize that. Like 10 years. And I'm going to harp on this point because I have people that I work with that they want results in 4 weeks. They want results in 6. They want results in 6 months. I have a 6-month minimum of working with me. And for a lot of people, they're like, okay, well, like, when are we going to get to that point of me liking what I'm seeing? And I'm like, sometimes I cannot tell you. And one of the biggest reasons, and I shouldn't say sometimes, it's actually all the time I can't tell you that. But one of the biggest reasons why I have to say I can't tell you or it depends is actually because of what you said about the internal of you. And I can want something for someone so bad. And I hope that I play that role in someone's life, for you to be able to sit here and talk about your coaches that way, right? But that's not actually everybody. And again, that goes back to the fact that this shit is hard and it's not fun. Like I talk about the fact that it's fun for me, but it maybe in the moment when I'm talking to other people about it, because I get excited. But I go through the same exact things. I have the same temptations. I have the same sacrifices and considerations and compromises that I need to make. And I'd be lying if I was like, oh yeah, this is an easy thing to do. Just make this decision. Don't do that. Don't do this. As I'm sitting here recording this, I'm like, yesterday I spent the whole day feeling like exhausted and super tired. And my Whoop gave me a 1% recovery because I went to a wedding the night before and had tequila. And it was great. Did that help me achieve my fitness goals? Hell no. Did I have a great time? Yes. Does that help with my mental health, my overall wellness? 1,000%.
And I love what you said at the end, because one, you got to always take time for you and do what makes you happy, right? This isn't go to the gym every day and only go to the gym and only do that. No, like how do you incorporate it with your life? And then to your clients, say I want results in 6 months, I want results in 4 weeks. It's really about how do you make a lifestyle change and incorporate it into your lifestyle. So if you're a morning person, I'm a morning person. I wake up and I'm like, I'm going to go for a 30-minute run, or I'm going to go to CrossFit, right? And I make that decision with myself. Now, when I go for that 30-minute run and I come back, I look exactly the same. And the next day I go do it, I still look exactly the same. But there's one thing I want to harp on is I feel really, really good personally. I feel great that I woke up and I went for that run. And yeah, I may look exactly the same, but mentally I feel better for my day. Like I woke up and did that. 90% of people probably didn't, but I woke up and did that. Then let's say month 6, I'm like, holy crap, I lost a few pounds. But it was that consistency of me waking up and feeling good. And a lot of things in life are like that, where we want results right away. I mean, we're millennials, so we definitely want results tomorrow, right? We want shit to happen tomorrow. But that's not what life is. It's not sexy, but it's consistency. And then you wake up one day and you're like, holy crap, I just achieved my goals and set some new ones. Because life is so long. So when your clients tell you 6 months, I go back, and I was a first responder for years, right? I go back, I'm like, you're 25, you're 30 years old. You got 90 years to live. Why do you want results in 6 months? You got to do this for the next 90 years, right? But you want results in 6 months? Like, how do you make that change for your life? So what happens and what I've seen is you hit that result and then you drop off. And that shouldn't be it either. It should be that lifestyle change. And it's hard. You said it's hard. It is hard.
So walk me through what your day looks like. I know you recently started a new job, or newer job, let's say. But I think it's important to contextualize your mindset around what your schedule actually looks like, because you shared a lot of golden nuggets in there, even just in mentioning details like, I'm a morning person. I find that that's the best time for me to work out. Yeah. Really optimizing your schedule is a big factor here. So tell me a little bit about what your day looks like, include your fitness in that, or you can just talk about work. But I think that'll be a good way to kind of frame this up for people to really understand where they might be able to get started.
Yeah, of course. So I am not a homebody. I am out and about as a person. And depending on if I'm in the office or if I work from home, my days look different. But I'm going to say we're going into the office because a lot of us are starting to go into the office. So works in Manhattan. It takes me about 45 minutes to get there from where I am. And for me, is when I walk into work, I know that I may not be able to work out after work because my day I might go until 9, 10 o'clock. It's just the way my day is. So I have to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. So at 5:30, my alarm goes off. And sometimes I don't want to get out of bed. I don't. But I made a commitment to myself, not to you, not to my boss, not to anyone else. So I get up and I get out of bed. And then I run to the CrossFit gym because it's about 0.6 miles away. So I have a backpack, I put it on, and I do a half a mile run to the gym. Then I'm in the gym for an hour. And then I do a half a mile run back. Depending on how the workout was and how I feel, I look at the clock. I'm like, can I go on, do a little extra cardio? Because I love to balance that with my lifting. If I have 20 minutes, I'm going to go do that. If I don't, I take a shower. I typically listen to a business podcast because I'm in business and in healthcare. So I listen to a podcast in the morning and I go to work. I'm in by around 9:15, and I leave anywhere between 5 and 6. And after that, I may go out with my friends because, like I said, how do you balance this around your life? I'm in the city. I want to go see my friends. So I do go out with my friends. I told you last time. The one thing that can improve is my nutrition. It's not great, and I'm self-aware of that. Because I will go out with my friends. I might have a few drinks, and it's a Monday or a Tuesday. But what I do is I'm in bed by 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock at the latest, because rest is important for the body. Because if I don't go to bed at 10, I know I'm not going to wake up for the gym the next day. So then how do you then go back and go to the gym and make sure that's a thing? But that is how I built it around my life. But when I'm at work, I'm in meetings all day. I'm sitting just like we are right now, sometimes for 8 hours. It's just Zoom to Zoom, or one meeting to another. And there's a lot going on, right? I'm in corporate healthcare. So you can imagine the healthcare space, there's just a lot going on. But you have to take that time for you. And for me, because my day's crazy, it's done up front. It's done right in the morning. And when I walk to work, I am ready to go because I just spent probably an hour and a half working out in the morning. I've been up since 5:30. When it's 9 a.m., I already had a great day.
Yeah.
I already had such a good day. So that's what makes me ready to go to work and do what I have to do.
Now, I think this will be an interesting exercise. Compare that to Aman 10 years ago. Like, what did your day look like then? I realized you had a different job. I realized you're in college. Like, yes, there's all these other variables, but maybe provide that comparison in terms of like your mindset or like what was important to you, right? Yeah. Because a lot of this is tied into your values.
No, absolutely. My people were always important to me even 10 years ago, but I didn't work out. Like, going for a run was dreading. Like, I just didn't want to do it, so I would not do it. I didn't watch what I ate. So I would wake up Like if it's school, like I'm waking up like 30 minutes before I had to get to class, right? And I'm rushing to get there. There's no time for me. There's nothing. Now you're in, like 10 years ago, we were in class, right? You're in class throughout the day. And then after, I'm hanging out with my friends. I might be drinking or doing something that's definitely bad for you, catching up on work and homework, and then I'm going to bed. Or I'm sitting around watching TV and eating Elio's, which was like that frozen pizza that I loved, or like eating nachos and mozzarella sticks. And don't get me wrong, I still do that, right? Like I still
we have our moments for that, yeah.
Right, but you have a day that you can still do that, but it's about the balance around it. I did not look like what I look like now, right? To put in that 10-year journey, like over those 10 years, I don't look like what I look like back in high school or back in college. I did lose a bunch of weight. I can move a lot faster. I can do that, but that didn't happen, in 6 months or 9 months or even a year or 2 or 3 or 4. It happened in a very, very, very long time. But my days 10 years ago they weren't really about me, if that makes sense. It was just about like, what are all the commitments I made outside of my personal commitments, and let's go do those. That's a very simple way to put it.
Sure.
Right? You have to go to school, so you go to school. You have to do your work, so you do your work. Your friends ask you to hang out, so you hang out. You want to watch TV, you watch some TV, and then you eat like crap. But I think the hardest thing to do in life, and I just thought of it, so I want to share it, is keeping the commitments to yourself. Because if you compare the 10 years ago to the now I keep more commitments to me. Back then, I would keep commitments to everyone around me. And I want people to think about that. Think about everything you do throughout your day that isn't for you. Whether it's going to work, doing that presentation, going on that phone call, having that meeting. How many of those things are for you versus other people? And the easiest commitment to break is the one with you, because you didn't tell nobody about it except yourself.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And it's interesting because I've heard that in a slightly different context. I've heard Ed Milet say this recently, and also Mel Robbins has something similar to share on that. In terms of commitments or responsibilities to yourself, what you just said about them, they both believe that that's how you build confidence. And keeping the commitments to yourself, keeping the promises to yourself, are how you build your own confidence over time. So I'd love to ask you if you can reflect back on that period of your life, kind of give us a scale of 1 to 10. Where was your self-confidence and how does that compare to today?
If you asked externally, I think people would always think I had self-confidence because I was always a public speaker. I always did that. But like,
you're very extroverted, outgoing. I would agree with that. Yeah.
I'm very extroverted. So like from that perspective, but like internally, like the conversation I had with myself was very different. Like it was more like well, you're not going to run because you can't run fast, right? Like I would run a 12-minute mile, like, and everyone else was running an 8-minute mile, right? Like, so the conversation with yourself were negative, right? It was like, I can't do this or I can't do that. So you don't try. Today, I'm literally an example today. Saturdays, I call them partner WODs, right? Partner workouts. So me and my brother were at the gym together and we were doing a workout, and he did we were just trying to finish something up, and he did like 12 reps or something. And mentally in my head, the conversation was, oh, wow, that's a lot. You got this. I didn't like yell it out loud. It's just in my head. You got this. And I honestly believe the game is mental, where it's like, if I told myself I don't got this, I would have broken that up into 2 sets from the get-go, because I just told myself I can't do it.
And our brain is always looking for ways to make things easier.
So, but I'm looking at the clock and my workouts are typically timed, and I'm like, well, you got 2 minutes before that time cap hits and you're going to finish this goddamn workout. You're going to do it. So then I did it. But I could have easily had a negative conversation with myself, and all of that would have fallen apart, if that makes sense. But it really is that I'm a big internal person. I'm a big, like, how do you mentally take care of yourself? Because if you don't do that, you won't, right? So it's having that conversation with yourself.
Where did you pick up on the importance of the internal? Is there a moment in time that you can remember thinking about that? And maybe is there any sort of alignment with your fitness journey?
Pay attention to what you listen to on these devices, right? So there's so much negativity out in the world, right? There's so much of that. So I noticed, once again, my self-awareness, like I would follow probably like 2,000 accounts on Instagram. None of them were giving me any value. If you look at my Instagram now, I probably follow like 700. I got rid of everything. And then what do you listen to? So for me, like I listen to motivation things. I listen to fitness podcasts, right? I listen to things around positivity, and I try to get rid of all the negativity. So when you put that into your mind, and it might sound silly, I believe if you listen to that a lot, that's how you start training your mind slowly. Like the book I'm reading now is called Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. It's very much about,
Love him.
yeah, he's great. I mean, and that's what I listen to.
Mhm.
Those are the things that I watch and I listen to. And then surround yourself with like-minded people is the second one. There's what's the same when you're like the top 5 people you spend your time with or something. I don't remember the exact statement.
Yep.
But if you picked 5 people around you that are going to bring you down, then you're going to be brought down. But if you choose to invest in people and spend time with people who are going to lift you up, then you will be lifted up. But I honestly think is how do you selectively choose your external environment and what you ingest in your body, whether it's like, for some people it is just podcasts and it is like Instagram. And I don't believe mentors today have to be someone that you literally know really, really well. It might be something you're reading about and you get inspired, like, and then you take action on that inspiration. So for me, it was that change, right? Like, I don't need this negativity, so I'm not going to follow these 2,000 accounts. I took very conscious effort of unfollow, and then listening to positivity and podcasts that are going to help me get better.
Now let's go on the flip side of that, right? Just to keep it interesting and play devil's advocate. Where do you think the balance is and on that continuum of not getting into the realm of toxic positivity? Because I think that is something, let's talk about who we're surrounding ourselves with, our experiences. This morning, we were talking before we hit the record button. I was at a beach workout in Seabright, New Jersey. And right after the class that I was leading, one of my coworkers is a yoga instructor and she was leading a yoga class. And I started just doing a little social media content for her, recording her message. And she said something really interesting. She was listening to another speaker over the course of the past week, I think at her kid's school. And the person said, we spend so much time trying to say, like, just let it go, or be the bigger person, like whatever, like just instead of learning to sit with your emotions. So let's say that we are in this negative space. How do you personally manage that?
So I love that you said that, because one of my friends, his name's Ilya. I maybe a year or two ago, I'd always be that person, like, it's fine, let it go, let's do this, right? And he's like, life can suck sometimes, and that's okay, right? Like he like said that to me, and I'm like, oh wow, he's right. Like life is hard, and it can suck sometimes, and that is okay. But for me, like the same 5 people that I mentioned are the same 5 people that I can call and let them know
when that does,
that does happen, and they will help lift me up, right? So for me, like, I don't think people should be afraid to ask for help in any way or frame that is, because life is very, very tough, especially today. And I'm so happy you said that, because you can talk positivity all day, but sometimes you're in a space, whether it's a literally the way you're surrounded, or a mental space, or life just sucks, and sometimes it just does suck. Like that's allowed to happen. Like things don't always go the way they should go. But how do you get through that? For me, I call my friends, right? I'm a talker. I like to express my emotions. I like their help and helping me try to figure out what's happening here and there, and what's the root of what's going on, whether it's a problem at work, whether it's a family problem, whether it's a problem with someone I'm talking to. So they help me, right? My people help me with it. And I'm very, very grateful for them. Like I joke, and I'm like, hope one day you might answer my phone call to my best friends, like I would never do. They're always there for me, and in return, I'm always there for them, right? I think it's, the other thing is, like, think about those conversations that you have with your people, and then try to have a similar conversation with yourself when you can, because it's so easy to go so hard on yourself, is what I've learned as well. And when you call your people, they put things in a perspective that makes you realize what's happening. So for me, that's it. But I love that you said toxic positivity can be a really, really bad thing, and there needs to be a balance, and you need to learn to sit with your emotions, like you said, and I don't think I'm that great at it right now. I always try to flip it. I always try to do that. And I know that's not good. Recently, very new, that I know that's not good. So I'm trying to now change my behavior and say, well, this kind of isn't, I need to sit with this. Need to learn so I can be better in the future. We've got a lot of life to live.
Yeah, but even again, what you just said, I think, I want to acknowledge your commitment to your self-awareness, because in describing that and us just kind of talking through it, right? You recognize where there's space for you to grow in another direction, and just be cognizant of the fact that that is something that you maybe could change. Maybe you don't have to. Like, maybe it does work for you, right? But it's just, again, going back to a lot of the values you shared in the first 2 minutes that we started this recording, and talking about self-awareness, but also curiosity, I think is the really big one that's wrapped up in everything you just said. And that having that open mind.
Yes, you have to have that. When people sit down and ask me for like advice in business, right? It's a similar advice in fitness. I say there's 3 keys to success that I like to share. One is passion, and have passion for what you do and love what you do every single day. 2 is compassion, which is all around empathy, right? It's all around having that empathy for others, being able to understand who they are. And the 3rd one's curiosity, and intellectual curiosity, to want to keep moving forward and get better. And if you don't have that curiosity, it falls off. And when you connect it to fitness, like, find something you're passionate about over time, and it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. I used to walk into the gym and hate it, and then I found CrossFit and I love it. But for you, it might be different. For everyone, it might be different. But you have to be committed to finding what you're passionate about. And it's very similar to work, right? People say, I hate my job. I'm like, cool, go taste shit. Go taste something else. You hate what you do? Don't do it. The world's your oyster. There's opportunity in it. But try something, right? Just try it. Because we're so afraid to take that first step. And then be compassionate towards the people around you to lift others, like my friends do for me. And then curiosity at the end of the day is so important, because it's going to keep that growth mindset, and you keep going at the end of the day.
So with the curiosity piece, and I think even tying this back into social media too, right? And you mentioning you tried to walk into the gym by yourself, and then finally for you, it was CrossFit that you found. I'd really like for you to talk about your perspective as that just average person who's a fitness enthusiast, right? Versus somebody who's really studied in it. How did you figure out how to wade through a lot of bullshit of finding the recipe for you? Because, and I'm asking this question very specifically, when I think about the buckets of problems that people come to me with, one of them is that they just don't know what the hell to do for their workout. And that is met with a $1 billion fitness industry that's telling you, do this over here, do that over there. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. And I fully recognize I have an advantage in what I happen to be passionate about, that I can wade through that. So how did you figure that out? Like, do you think it was a little bit serendipitous with just finding the Groupon? Like, I'd really love to know.
I think it was a little serendipitous with finding the Groupon and just walking in. But then the other thing is blocking out the noise. So for me, I went all in, and I focused on that because I liked it, which means I wasn't being distracted by, oh, you should do this or you should do that. You can literally, like, people hate on CrossFit all
I was about to say, it's such an easy one. I could go pick on it for the next 15 minutes.
I was going to say, you can make fun of me all the time.
Yeah.
I posted a video on Instagram, and it was one of those reels, and within like 10 minutes, I had negative comment, negative comment, negative comment, negative comment, because you can hate on this all day, but are you going to let that affect your decision? See, that goes back to what you mentioned earlier around keeping that commitment and building that self-confidence for yourself. So I was like, cool, that's nice. I still went to the gym today. I don't know if you guys did, but that doesn't really matter. Then my second thing in my head is, I'm like, you took the time to look at a video of mine and then say something negative about it. I'm so sorry. Like, why can't we just be there? Why can't we be kind people? Why can't we be there to lift others? Like, that's one of my main philosophies of life. So you can let that affect you, and it is so easy to let that affect you. I mean, it probably would have affected me 5 years ago if it had happened. Or you can just pause for a second, sit with your emotions like you taught me, and then move forward, right? But you have to pause and rationalize what's happening. But for me, it was serendipitous, and then blocking out the noise.
Yeah, I think that's, I'm glad that we're using like CrossFit as a potential example for that, right? Because especially in the last, like 2 years, like I think we might have talked about this when we were prepping for this interview, but with anything like from CrossFit Games controversies. Like there's so many things I can list. And like when Frazier went on Joe Rogan's podcast and like everyone in CrossFit got mad about how he handled the conversation. Like that's with anything. Like I would totally put myself in the category of like, yeah, there's certain diets that I'll poo-poo all day long. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to this one phrase. And I don't remember where I read this or list. Oh, I do remember. Mind Pump. There was a little snippet from their podcast, and maybe in the last month or so, and one of them said, "Everything works until it doesn't."
Yeah.
And I think that's the perfect quote. And I said that to a new client of mine a couple weeks ago when they were asking me like, well, what is your philosophy? How did you arrive here? Like, why do you focus on macronutrients? I don't think that's necessarily like the be all end all. It just happens to work in my sample size for a lot of people, myself included. But wrapped up in all of that really is the unsexy stuff, the habits, the choices. And I would be the first person to say in my own experience with something like tracking my macros or tracking my food, it worked for me for 4 years until it didn't. And then I spent the last 2 years figuring out how to reshape what that looks like in my life. But all of that actually goes back to something you said at the beginning around goals and goal shifting and understanding that we're doing this for perpetuity. But I think something that's really interesting in your story in the specific example was talking about how you feel rather than how you look. And I don't know if you want to speak for the male versus female component to this, because I do think that's a part of this.
Yes.
How did you approach CrossFit and just like that being like your initial commitment to fitness and really going all in on it with the mindset of, okay, I'm going to do this based off of how I feel versus trying to chase a certain aesthetic?
Yeah.
Because I think guys still have insecurities around aesthetics too. It's not fair for me to say. It's just the women out there.
No, it's the funny thing is that took time to develop as well and realize.
So tell me about that.
So for me, when I walked in, I was like, I want to lose weight. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I wanted it like tomorrow, just like everyone else. I'm human. I'm human, just like I'm an average guy. So when I walked in, I was like, this is great. These guys are freaking ripped, they're jacked. We're going to go do this. And then I'm like, this is going to take time. So then I asked myself, all of this is asking yourself, like, how do you feel when you walk out of the gym? I feel great. You know, I don't look different, but I feel great. I feel like I put in some work. I got a sweat in. For me, because CrossFit works until it doesn't. For me, it works. I made friends, which was amazing for me, that are on this journey with me. So that was very important to me, is building that community. So for me, instead of being like, you know, I was at, you know, X weight and I wanted to lose 10 pounds, which didn't happen in 6 months, or I wanted to, you know, I was putting up, you know, 95 pounds and I put up 150. That's not going to happen overnight. I was like, how do you feel walking out of the gym today? And that was a conversation I had with myself. And I don't think that happened for years. I never stopped going, you know, I never stopped going. But the conversation shifted to, come on, how do you feel when you wake up? Well, I feel crappy, but I went for a run. How do you feel now? I feel kind of good that I went for a run. And what I've learned over time is when I don't do something, whether it's like I want to do a 5-minute ab workout after I worked out. Every time I decide not to, because I already did my workout, I feel bad after. Like I feel like, I could have done those 5 minutes and I would have felt better right now. So then the next day, when I want to do the same thing, I'm like, remember yesterday you didn't do it and you felt bad? Now you're going to do the 5-minute workout. It's just 5 minutes of your day because you feel better afterwards. But that is, once again, when I first walked into the gym, that is not what I thought was going to happen. I thought, listen, these guys are jacked and they can run really fast and doing all these cool things. I want to do that. I'll get there in like 6 months. That's not life. But then you have to think of the long term, because life is long, and always connect it back with, like, people have these short-term goals, but life is long. And since this is a lifestyle change, really think about that. Think about why you want to achieve this in 6 months. Why is it so important to happen in 6 months when you got to live for the next 60, 70, 80, 90 years? And that, for me, like, understanding that perspective, like, put it in perspective. Because for me, it was like, we're young. Like, why are we trying to rush things? And that's kind of how it all unfolded for me.
I just want to let you keep going because there's literally so much wrapped up in that that I find, while I want people to understand that when I'm having conversations with them, often to talk them off a ledge of not having seen certain results in a week and two in whatever very short period, I still fall back into that trap myself too. In the last, 15 weeks, I've gotten a little looser with it in the last 3 weeks because I've had multiple social events. But I was going through a calorie deficit myself, and I was like, you know what? This is not as bad as it was the first time I tried to do this. And it was only because my perspective shifted. There is nothing I'm doing that the behavior is any different than what I tried 3 years ago when I did it the first time, or 4 years ago, whatever timeline it was. But it was more because I had a full realization that there were so many things in my life, like even personal relationships. Like, this is nothing to do with just fitness. It was like something I embodied of, this has to be done by this amount of time. And if I'm not there, I failed. If I didn't get this done, like, I'm not successful. And it's like, I'm not. That timeline piece though, I don't know what it's going to take for more people to get behind that. And really what I want to ask you with that is, in you having these conversations with yourself, Aman, did you start writing these things down? Like, what did you do for you personally that worked to actually stay committed to what you really wanted? Because I think a lot of people could potentially listen to this and be like, oh, well, that's awesome. Like, this is inspiring. But I want to put someone in a place where they could listen to this and then really go take action on it.
Yeah. One, I love everything that you said, because it was you versus you. I want everyone to understand that, right? Because you didn't compare yourself to anyone but who you were last week, who you were a few years ago. And that is very important, because you want to always get better, not because Aman's doing something or someone else is doing something. It's very for you. And that's important.
And I'll clarify that took shit tons of therapy and a lot of work, because before it was so external. Yeah.
But once again, it took time, and you put in the work. You put in the work to talk to folks. You put in the work to get help. And that was, it takes a lot of work. And I want people to understand that it's hard, right? Like, that's what I want people to understand. And it's not going to happen tomorrow. The writing it down, write everything down. You have a notepad on your phone, you can write down that way. You can be old school and write things down. If you're like me and no one knows I write things down, no one who hears this will know I ever write things down, by the way, because I've never shared it. But if you're like me and don't want people to know you write things down, put a locked note on your phone. Who cares, right? Then it's just for you. Write everything down to the point of sometimes how you're feeling that day, right? It doesn't have to just be about fitness, right? But a lot of things that, I'm a big person on mental and behavioral health. I do it for work, right? So a lot of things that get us to change our behavior, we have to take care of ourselves first, to take care of your mind first, to do all of those things. So write down how you're feeling. Write down if you're feeling shitty or if you're feeling good, and write down why you think you're feeling that way. When you go to the gym, for me, I like to write down how much I lifted, what I did, and all that. The one thing I want to share is I was a very different athlete. COVID, before COVID and after COVID. There was no CrossFit during COVID-19. My fitness didn't stop. I had to become literally a different athlete. I had to find a different way to work out. And for me, that was running and hopping on Peloton. And I spent an hour of cardio a day, and I had a sandbag. So I did a little bit of workout there and a jump rope. But I didn't get to lift what I was lifting. So when I walked back into the gym, I couldn't lift the weight I lifted.
And I want to stop you right there and have you walk us through, how did that make you feel?
At first, I was very sad because I'm a human. And then Tracy, my trainer, said, you're a different athlete now. You're turning into an endurance athlete. You can't compare what you had before COVID-19, because post COVID-19, I was like 10 to 15 pounds lighter, which was crazy, right? I felt healthier because I was doing a lot of cardio, but I couldn't lift the weights that I was lifting, which was completely fine. At first, it was very, very sad. But you know what I could do? I could move a lot faster, right? So that was cool. I was like, whoa, I never could move this fast before. I still can't pick up the weight that I used to be able to pick up, even today. because that is a different journey. And what I've also learned is you don't have to pick up the biggest weight. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you doing this? Go back to that perspective. For me, it's to just be fit, to just be a regular guy who has to go to work and take care of my, physical and mental health. So for that, I don't have to pick up the biggest weight. And I've actually, I was at the gym today, it said 95, my brother and I, 75 pounds. Because we knew that at 95, we weren't going to be able to finish the workout. But at 75, we were, because there was a lot of running involved, which we're good at. There's a lot of cardio on it, a lot of burpees. So that's, once again, a conversation with yourself and being okay with it.
And there's a lot in there that you didn't necessarily expressly say, but in mentioning, tracking the weights that you're using and those components of your workout, I always say to my clients, random workouts equal random results. So we have to put something on paper. And it's funny when it comes to fitness, people can get behind this idea if they're trying to make a budget and they want to, live a certain lifestyle in terms of their spending. But for some reason, when it comes to fitness, when it comes to tracking your food and it comes to tracking anything around your workouts, it's no, I can't do it. It's the same exact skills. So as someone who probably could have been in that headspace in the last few years, where did you see that shift? What made you realize hey, I should start writing this down? Even if it's just as simple as tracking my weight that I'm using. Mm-hmm. And then as a second follow-up to that question, how much did that help you when you went back into the gym for the first time, when you were back into your more quote unquote normal routine?
Yeah. Well, the reason I started doing this is people kept telling me to do it and I wouldn't, just like your clients. And they're like, do it. And I'm like, nah, it's fine. But then it's that thing where well, how do I know what my bench was? And wait, I can't memorize every single thing. And then when you start to do it, you're it takes 2 seconds. Why was I being so I don't want to do it? It takes 2 seconds. And I had a similar thought when I started doing it, which was well, you do this for work all the time, or you do this personally, you have to write it down. So it's going to happen. Where am I today? Where do I want to go? So I'm so happy you said that. But when I looked at it, I realized very, very quickly that I'm not gonna put up 225 on a bench even now. It's just not happening. I'm not gonna snatch 155. It's not happening right now. So I had to then redo things. So the funny thing was, when I trained, I was you have new PRs now, right?
Yeah.
Because you're a completely different athlete. So you have new PRs, you have new things to track. So to me, it's tracking fresh. Where am I when I first come back? And then where am I going to go? Last week I was doing sumo deadlifts, right? Sumo deadlift, and I put up, what was it? 285. So this week I was I want to get 305. And I did it, right? But it was because I tracked it and I was I had the 285 on it.
It wasn't some arbitrary number.
No.
It helped you actually set yourself up for success because it was incremental. I spend so much time trying to explain that to people because even with a food tracking example, so many people sit down with me in the first 2 weeks. They're okay, what are my macros? And when am I going to hit them? I'm no, we're just going to pick one to focus on. And you're going to show me if you can do that one. And I'm actually going to put it at a number that I know you can hit because I need you to see that success. Mm-hmm. If I put the goalpost too far out of the way and you just barely can't reach it, you're probably going to give up before you even really get started.
Yeah. One thing that's very important you said is start small.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it all at once, but it's the small incremental lifestyle changes that then it becomes a part of your life and it becomes a part of what you're doing. But that one macro that you said for your clients, that's so amazing because you're trying to do something that's achievable and you're trying to change behavior that's achievable. And the practice is, how are we changing our behavior? How are we doing things differently for us and only for us? And you don't have to do it all at once. I think, as even me, if you had me do 50 things, I'm going to get overwhelmed.
Right. On top of your job, on top of other things that you have, other priorities and other things that are important to you too.
Yes.
It'll never become a part of your lifestyle if that's the approach.
I completely agree. It has to be small incremental changes this isn't sexy for it to work. It's not going to be like what you see on TV. It's not going to be all those things, but small changes get to great results also with consistency. And I think those are the two most important things. It's making the small change, because if it's too big, you're not going to do it, like you said. And then being consistent. And when you first start, like whether it's fitness or anything in life, you may drop off a few times, and that's fine. It's a part of life. You may not go every day. You may want to go 3 times a week. I read an article where one person just went to the gym for 5 minutes and left. Just go into the gym 5 minutes, and they left the gym because the only behavior change he was doing was, I need to walk into the gym.
Yeah. And it sounds like silly, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read Atomic Habits, but that is like the pillar of the book. And talking about like, okay, if you want this outcome, but we focus so much on the outcome that's pretty far away, we forget about all of the steps that are required to take to get there. So if you can't get yourself to the gym, it could be as simple as like, okay, well, I need to get my sneakers on, right? Yeah. And if I could just put my sneakers on, okay, well, let's back up even further out of that. If you need to get your sneakers on, put them by the front door and put them in a place where it's visible, because then you'll actually put them on. Yep. And that's the catalyst that you need to have the domino effect to get you into the gym.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like how do you go to bed? How do you wake up? How do you set your morning up for success the night before, just like you said? So you're going to go ahead and do that thing that you told yourself you're going to do, which was, hey, I'm going to go to the gym. And so many people probably open their eyes and say, I have to go find my workout clothes. I have to wear my sneakers. Like, you know what? Snooze. Let's go back to bed.
Yeah, it all sounds harder, but like, for as harsh as this may sound, that was also a choice.
That is a choice, 100% a choice. But it's your choice, right? And if you want to get better, then you have to make the decision to make that happen. And you have to be in a space where you want to go do these things. And I think that's very, very important. I think a lot of our conversation was around you as an individual and self-awareness.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about comparing yourself to anyone else if you want to actually get better and achieve your goals at the end of the day.
And in your journey and being able to develop a lot of these perspectives, whether that was through fitness or otherwise, I know you've touched on this, and obviously I know the experiences that you've had professionally, but how has the consistency and commitment in the gym or in your fitness journey then translated into your job and your day-to-day, like risks you've taken in different positions you've taken on and that sort of thing?
It translates to everything. I start my day this way because it makes me happy, and then it translates to everything that I do because it is a mindset. So like the mindset that I'm talking about now is the same mindset I have at work. It's the same mindset when I want to, for me, I do product development, which means my job is to create new and fun things within the healthcare space. And it's a risk-taking job, right? So, but you have to have a mindset for that. It's the same mindset I have at the gym. It's the same conversation I have at the gym. All of it translates. I mean, it all translates in everything you do, which is why I'm very, very big on a lifestyle change. Like when you go to the gym for the hour and the conversation you have with yourself then or what you do should translate to everything, because it's who you are becoming and the change that you're looking to make just throughout your life.
How you do one thing is how you do everything, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I truly believe that.
I know we are talking a lot about making these small changes and it being incremental, and the fact that this has taken time, and this isn't the end. Like, this is just the beginning, right? Like, just
work too. Yeah, just get started.
Exactly. And so, but at the same time, if you could go back, like feeling the way you feel now and knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently in terms of when you started your fitness journey, how you started it? Like, if you could go back and talk to even like maybe longer than 10 years, like your 14-year-old self, what would you say to you?
I would say just don't be afraid of what other people think, because I think that's what stops us a lot, right? Because you kind of get into this, and don't be afraid of falling. And when I say falling, I don't like to use the word failure, because it's just like people are like, I'm gonna fail. I like to say fall fast, get back up and walk like you're a kid, right? You're gonna fall on your face a few times, but you get back up and you keep going. think about how you started to walk as a kid. You fall a lot. Don't be afraid to fall, because you will get back up and you will keep walking. And don't be afraid to fall again. And anything in life, right? That's not just about fitness. I think it's because when I was 14, I didn't want to do different things because I was afraid. Even today, you don't want to post things, or you don't want to say something because what's the net of it? But in reality, ask yourself, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? It's really not going to be that bad, right?
Right.
What's the worst thing that's going to happen? And my worst thing in my head is probably a lot worse than most, because I was a first responder for so many years. So I've seen so much. But that mindset probably shifted a lot into my fitness journey as well. But because of that mindset, it's like, just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to walk into the gym. Don't be afraid to take the step. Like, to get out of whatever it is you might be in, it starts with you. And also, don't be afraid to ask for help. You have to figure out what works for you. So that's what I would tell myself. But in hindsight, like, I don't regret anything, right? I wouldn't do anything differently. We all want to start things earlier. That's human nature. We all want to say, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do this. I wish. But I got to where I am, and I have a long way to go, right? Personally and professionally, and who I am. But every time I fell was a learning experience. And I want others to realize that, right? Every time I was able, personally and professionally, every time something didn't go well, I was able to learn from it and get better. And I think it's super important to understand that as well, because life isn't smooth, right? It's a roller coaster. And I was on the phone with my boss yesterday. I was like, how was your week? He's like, it was a roller coaster. Like, that's fun. And at first he's like,
did he start laughing?
No, he said, you're right. It is fun, because if life was like this, what would the fun be?
Yeah.
Right? There's no fun in that. Life has its ups and its downs, and it is like a roller coaster. It's a thrill ride. But I wanted to say that because it's not just fitness. And I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this is just an hour of their day. But that mindset can be translated into everything you do.
Yeah, it's so true. I think I haven't necessarily thought about it in this regard before. And this is everything you're saying is almost making me understand why I talk so much about things that have nothing to do with fitness, or even just in having conversations with friends who are in the nutrition coaching space. Something I've been really examining a lot personally in my business is like, well, how can I fully describe what I do? Because it's not just about nutrition. And the people who get that get so much more out of the coaching experience, because they start to see like, oh, like this is a new way of looking at this, and it's working for me because it trickles into every other single thing that I do. How I show up at work, how I show up as a partner, how I show up in any sort of capacity for yourself, for other people, for whatever reason. And it goes back to what you just said, like so much of all of this is that gray area, but that's where life is. And I think sometimes in us wanting to put everything like in neat little boxes, sure, there's a lot of habits that we may practice that help us get started. But I think sometimes, and this is what I've seen in my own experience in the context of fitness and nutrition, that's actually where you get stuck. Because you start to think, well, then that's the only way to do it. And then all of a sudden, these other circumstances change. Everyone's experience with gyms closing is the example we could all relate to, right?
Yeah.
But you chose to show up for that differently. And I want to be respectful of your time, but I do want to ask this other question. How do you think, like how much of when you started your fitness journey and where you were at by the time this happened influenced the way you decided to just immediately make that shift and be like, well, I'm going to run now. I'm going to jump on the Peloton? Because admittedly, like I had all the tools and I was just like, F that. Like if there's no dumbbell, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. And well, for me, like I was devastated when the gym was closing. It was like a part of my day. Like I would go every day. And at first I would like try different things. But it was having a network of people that kept me going. And for me, that network of people who are like-minded kept me going. And I lived with my brother and my cousin at the time. So my brothers, we would hop on the Peloton. So like we would all do it. Me and my brother would go for runs in the morning together. And he runs a lot faster than me, and that's okay. It's okay, right? But we would go for runs in the morning. And that just kind of kept us moving. And, you know, what I've realized and with self-awareness, I was like, wow, I'm not going into the office. I'm sitting for 8 hours a day. When you're going into the office, and for anyone that works in the city, you're going to walk miles just from getting on one subway to the other.
Yeah. I had a client who's visiting New York right now from Charlotte, and she texted me yesterday and was like 10 miles in one day. Like, done. You don't need to worry about working out.
Exactly. But you take that and then you go remote
to zero. Yeah.
For me, I started working out twice a day during that time, because when I did a 2-a-day workout, I got my move that I would do just from naturally going to the office. But for me, it was just like, if COVID-19 happened probably like 7-8 years ago, I don't know what I would have been, like what state I would have been in. I don't know if I would have just been like, fuck this. But I'm grateful that I wasn't personally, but I'm also grateful that I lived with folks that wanted to keep moving. So that kept me moving. And I was able to like see things around. But once again, it was hard. It was really, really hard. I mean, it was hard getting back on the CrossFit trail. I'm not gonna lie to you, because I'm like, I haven't touched a barbell in a really, really long time.
Yeah.
Do I still know what I'm doing?
So what advice do you have for someone? I've wanted to bring this back up at multiple points because it's underscored the conversation, but again, we haven't necessarily like come out and said it. What advice do you have for somebody who maybe doesn't have the luck that you do in having siblings, people that they live with, a partner who values their fitness and movement as much as they would like to? Because something I see so often is the impact that environment has, right? Like, let's take it as small as like, okay, like you notice that you eat a cookie, and for you, like eating that one cookie is like a gateway to the whole sleeve of cookies or whatever. My first piece of advice for anyone who feels that way is like, we have to change the environment, take it out of the house, whatever you have to do. Sometimes that's met with, well, this person in my life wants this thing. This person doesn't value this, doesn't value that. How do you get over that?
Yeah.
What can you do to navigate that? Because I think you would agree, like you're lucky that hasn't been your story.
Yeah, I'm super lucky for that. But you're always gonna hit people that are going to be like, oh, you're going to the gym and you're going to bed early. Like, wow, you become the inspiration. And the way you do that is pay attention to what you listen to and pay attention to who you talk to when you can control it. Because if you're surrounded by people that is your family that you love, that doesn't value these things, how do you become that inspiration? And it's going to be hard. But for me, like my life thing is like, I want to inspire people to do what inspires them. What might inspire me might be very, very different than what inspires Krista, right? That might be very different. But how can I get the best out of you to make you better? That's my like life goal.
I love that.
And thank you. But for that, it's once again a conversation to have with you. It's like, all right, I'm surrounded by people who don't value this, and I want to value it. So like what you taught me is sit with that emotion for a little bit. Sit with that and be like, well, if that's happening, then write down the current state. Currently, I want to eat healthy, but this is happening. I'm a big believer in writing it down. So you can have very tactical advice. Write down everything that's happening currently that is preventing you from getting to the goal that you want to get to. And then what can you control to get there? Well, if there's cookies in the house and I want to change my environment, well, cool. I'm going to put, and you know, everyone's different. I'm going to put these cookies in a drawer that has a combination to it that I don't know. So only the person in the house that wants cookies can get them. Behavior change, right? Yep. I want to go to the gym every day, but my friends want me out till 11 o'clock. You don't owe your friends anything.
Right.
You inspire your friends and say, listen, you guys want to be out till 11? I'll stay out till 10. I got to go to the gym. And they make fun of you and be like, that's great, right? And it hurts, but make a joke back. Whatever it is that you got to do to go back to bed at 10 o'clock. And when you write down your current state, you can then figure out what behavior change you need to make to get to that future state. And I think that is just one tactical thing that you can do to really do it. And it's something we touched on earlier. Write it down. Because if you write it down, it becomes real. It's on paper. And it sounds so silly. I know how silly it sounds because I was the person that didn't want to write anything down, which is why I can share that I know it sounds silly. Right. Write it down and then identify what that behavior. So you have 3 columns, like this is where I am, this is where I want to get to, In the middle column is the behavior change I'm going to make personally to get there. Test it, right? Just like you're building a new business or work, test it. For 30 days, I'm going to try this. And now you're going to say, Aman, 30 days is so long. Is 30 days really long when you got 30 years to live or 60 years to live or 90 years to live?
No, it's a drop in the bucket.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Drop in the bucket. Try it for 30 days. And then ask yourself, did this work? And if it did, great. If not, try something new. Keep trying different things to find what works for you, because what works for myself and what works for you might be very, very different.
And I would even challenge that to take it a step further to say, being very mindful about your definition of did this work, right? Because that's always so tied back to our goals. And that's where the impatience comes in. And really thinking about, obviously I'm going to have the bias that's where a coach can come in to frame that up for you. That's why I have multiple coaches myself, because I do the same thing. Yeah. I'm like, oh, well, did this work? I don't know. But then when I assess whether it did or didn't, most of the time my knee-jerk reaction of saying no is because I lost sight of what the ultimate goal was, or my definition of success wasn't right.
Yeah. No, I couldn't harp on that more and make it a behavior change goal, right? So like, I'm not eating cookies 3 times a week. Not like, did I lose 10 pounds in 30 days? That's not realistic. Let's be realistic here.
Yeah.
But there are realistic behavior changes that you can make for the long run.
That could get you to those 10 pounds. Correct. Not could, that will get you to those 10 pounds. Yeah.
So measure that, right? Rather than measuring the hard number.
Amen.
Over time, you're going to get to that number. But the amount of time it takes me versus someone else is going to be very, very different. So many things that impact the body. And it's everything from fitness, nutrition, mental health. Like, the list goes on and on and on. But my other advice is just stop comparing yourself to others. Like my brother told me this last week, was the one thing I love about CrossFit, his words, is like, it's a really you versus you game. And people don't realize that because there's so many people around you. Mm-hmm. But you walk in and you do something. You write it down. And then next week you ask yourself, what can I do better? There's always competition involved. Listen, I'm a competitive person. It's always like that. But at the end of the day, it's still a you versus you game. And that to me is super.
And that's why I actually really love group fitness, to take it even broader. It regardless of the type of workout that you're choosing to do, but being in that environment, I think that's where, when the workout is arguably designed that way, it's very special because it could be the environment of being with a group that could get you in there. But then I think what takes it to the next level of you actually seeing those goals is the realization that your brother said, right? Like, it's understanding that it's about you. And I say to my clients a lot, like, I have, just like certain phrases that I always say when I'm teaching. And one of the big ones is like, we're halfway through class or we're in the last couple of minutes. And I always ask them, one, at the beginning of class, to set a goal, like a small goal that they're going to achieve in the next 45 minutes. Halfway, take inventory. Where are we with achieving that goal? And then towards the end, it's more of, you need to empty the tank, like whatever we're trying to accomplish in this particular workout, but remembering that this is not for me. It's not for the person next to you. And you are the only person who knows if you are actually working at 100% effort. You could lie about that. Yep. But you're only lying to you, and like to do it for me, it's not worth anything.
Yeah, and it's and people often be like, "Come on, you're sandbagging today," which is like, you're not putting in your all. And sometimes they're really right. To your point, I was not putting in my all. Like I remember the first time I got a muscle up, which, to put in perspective, I can't do now after COVID. I can't do ring muscle ups. I'm gonna get there, but I can't. The first time I got a ring muscle up, someone looked at me at the gym, looked at me and said, "You're looking light today. Go jump up there." I'm like, I can't. There's no. He's like, no, just try it. Just go. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give it my all. I got up there. The first thing I said, "Someone take a picture of this thing." I couldn't believe it, right? I couldn't believe
now you had to do it again. Get that.
Yeah. I was like, and then I was able to do it again. But it was the fact of just like the group fitness, where it's a you versus you. Like, I could never ever do it, and someone just said, "Try it." Just and me never ever being able to do it was, I never really tried it. I never really gave it my all. I always saw it as a movement that was so hard. And then someone just kind of made me try it. Rope climbs, my cousin, I think, spent 6 hours at the gym with me, wouldn't let me leave the gym.
Until you did it.
Until I got rope climbs. And in my head and in my mind at that point in my life, I was like, I can't do it. But I was lucky enough to be surrounded by people that were like, you can do it. And that changed your mindset. And I kept falling and I kept failing and but we weren't leaving the gym till I got it. So I ended up getting it. And now I love doing it. But time, it takes time and consistency.
Well, I love all of that. And there have just been so many quotes and details in this entire conversation. I can't wait for this episode to drop for other people to learn from you and just understand that like you can start from wherever you are, right? And even if it isn't consistent right away, I think this is something that I just, in thinking about everything you said so far and understanding your perspective and how you've gotten here, what I really appreciate is the realness and that this wasn't like something you woke up and all of a sudden felt once you did it a few times. And to then bring it back to that transition of how our environment changed from the gym being such a pillar of your day and like there was no thought behind whether you were going to go there or not, to literally not having it as an option, how you've then been able to be like, okay, we need to set new goals. And that's totally fine. I really, really appreciate that, because I think, again, that's where the decision to stop committing to something or to pause or to get stuck or to allow that I can't voice to take over just ultimately does really take over.
No, absolutely. It's like you said, it works till it doesn't. And the gym still didn't work.
Yeah,
I have to
exactly. Well, to finish up the episode, we're going to do a quick little lightning round. And since we've spent so much time talking about fitness, and maybe you've kind of alluded to them throughout the conversation, but I want to know more about like what you actually like doing during your workouts, like favorite movements and that sort of thing. So that's what I'm going to stick to for this. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Favorite exercise of all time. Like if you could only pick one move for the rest of your life, it was the only thing you were allowed to do, what would it be? It could be a lift. It could be running, anything.
Yeah. Snatches, because I really, really used to suck at it. Like it used to be something I was so bad at, and now I absolutely love doing it. And it is a very complicated movement. And so I love it. So that would be my movement.
I love them too. I just think they make you feel really powerful.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. If there was one exercise that somebody could tell you, okay, we're going to avoid this forever and you don't have to do it and it won't affect your fitness, what are you getting rid of?
Thrusters. I'm not doing thrusters. And I just did a bunch of them. Like if I could just cut thrusters out of my day, that'd be fantastic.
Now, what do you like to do in terms of, we talked about like writing things down, potentially that could look like journaling, that sort of thing. In terms of that kind of self-care, what are your top 2 things that you like to do on a consistent basis?
So going to the gym is my self-care. And I'm trying to be better at getting enough sleep. I think the rest for the body is very, very important. And then for me, like I like surrounding myself with great people. So self-care for me is going out to dinner. It is like I canceled a bunch of meetings, not canceled, like I moved meetings to being virtual.
Yeah.
Just so I could spend an evening with my brother in the city, because that was important to me, right? So like I did that, which for me was self-care. But for someone else, it might be very, very different. But for me, the people in my life is very important.
I love that. That's awesome. Now, I don't believe in cheat meals, as you know, but that's usually the easiest way to ask this question. Like, what is your food that you could just go in on and indulge on? If there were no consequences, you'd eat it all the time.
I could eat pizza every single day, mozzarella sticks every single day, and nachos.
Do you have a favorite pizza spot between New York, New Jersey?
I literally in the past 2 weeks just went to the 2 top pizza places. So last week I was at Lucali's in Brooklyn.
Nice.
Which is a spot if you know your pizza spots. And last night I was at Raza.
I love Raza. It's so good.
Yeah. It's better now than it was before COVID. Like it was so good. It was amazing. And I just love pizza. And I definitely eat it more than I should.
But that's okay, because you acknowledge that, right?
Yeah.
That self-awareness coming back.
Exactly.
All right. Final question. if somebody makes it all the way to the end of this episode, but there's only one piece of advice they could take away from it, and like I said, you shared a lot, but what is that overall message that you want somebody to take their AirPods out, go on about the rest of their day? What do you hope they're still thinking about days later after listening to this podcast?
So if you want to make fitness or anything a part of your life, I want you to take a moment to audit your day, because a lot of us say we can't do it, and write down your day and find time for you and do what makes you happy. So 1, audit your day, and 2, we touched upon it so much in this episode, self-awareness and consistency. But it starts with, how do I become self-aware? How do I actually become consistent? So that's why it's like, audit your day. Just write it down. Like, you had me walk through my day, walk through your day and find that hour for you.
Love it. So well said. Well, Aman, thank you again for everything you shared, for being open, for seeking me out and being a part of this conversation. It's been so much fun, and it's been great for us to have the opportunity to reconnect. And that's something that I absolutely love about podcasting. Even it's just been a really interesting way to not necessarily just network, but also find common ground with people that maybe I lost touch with over the years. So this has been awesome, and I really, really appreciate that. And to all of our FYX listeners out there, please make sure you guys share this episode with a friend. The best way that you can do that, maybe you have somebody in your life that you want to work on your health and wellness and fitness with, like, this could be the conversation starter. This is such an easy way to bring it up. So take advantage of that and make sure that you're doing what you need to do to put yourself in the spaces, the places around the people who are going to help you show up as the version that you want to be. And with that, this has been another amazing episode of the FYX podcast, and we will catch you guys next time. Thanks, Aman.